Hello and welcome to my top 10 tips for staying organised in a small cruise cabin. If you have ever read the CruiseHols website or watched my YouTube channel for any length of time, you will know that when me and my wife cruise, it tends to be in the cheapest cabin, which usually equates to the smallest inside room. I've covered why that is the case before, but basically, we prefer to spend money doing things whilst on holiday rather than on our accommodation, and with a limited budget, that leaves us in the smallest of rooms. That is something that seems to put off some people when we talk to them about it, with the usual response being, "Don't you want a balcony?" or "I wouldn't be able to stay in a room if I couldn't see the outside." Of course, everybody would prefer to stay in the largest stateroom on the ship, but staying in a small cabin has never been an issue for me. I've travelled a lot in Asia and stayed in many small windowless rooms in hotels, and when I stay in a big city such as London, I use a budget chain such as Premier Inn Hubs, which also offers small but perfectly serviceable rooms. So basically small rooms are something I am used to. And once you get past the worries of not having an outdoor space or daylight often, you are left with a good room that when you know the top tips for making the most of it, it's perfect for your needs. In this list I take you through what I consider to be the top tips for staying organised in a small cabin, and therefore making the most of the space that you do have. So as ever, don't forget to like and subscribe, and why not leave a comment below with your tips for staying organised in a small cabin? And why not leave a comment below with your top tips? My name is Darren, and this is my top 10 tips for staying organised in a small cabin. When on a cruise, it's amazing how many things you pick up and that find your way into your pockets, but you are not sure if you still need them or if you want to bother taking them home with you. You know the sort of thing I'm talking about, stuff like port maps, pickup times, vouchers and more, that you will likely throw away, but you're just not quite sure. These are the sort of things that if you don't have somewhere to put them, they usually end up taking quite a lot of space up by the time you have visited a few ports. So that is why I recommend having a dedicated dumper area.
What did you say?
That can be something like a shelf or a drawer or just a bit of countertop space, but it is somewhere where you can simply empty out your pockets when you get back to your cabin and then not worry about it until later, without it taking over the whole cabin. If you are new to cruising, you may not realise that all of the walls and often the doors of the cabin are made of metal, and that gives opportunities to add some magnetic hooks to them. Whilst you will usually have one or two hooks built into your cabin, usually in the bathroom or in the entrance, it is useful to take a couple of your own. You can then use the hooks for things such as coats, bags, hats or scarves, or any hooks you put in the entrance, or for toiletry bags or hair towels etc. in the bathroom. All of that clears up plenty of space in your room for other things, and makes the things on the hooks easier to grab when you need them. This is one of those things many don't think about, but even if you use a packing cube to pack your socks and underwear, you will likely keep your clean ones in it during your getaway. In fact, it's one of our other tips on this list. That leaves you with nowhere to keep your dirties after you've worn them, so many will either put them into their case, but that means constantly going in and out of your case and it not smelling its best by the end of the cruise, or they will use up storage space in their room that really could be put to better use. All you need to do is have a separate bag. We use a shopping bag that folds up into a pouch, but no matter what you use, you can stick it in a corner, out of the way, or under the bed, and then simply pick it up at the end of your cruise and stick it in your case. In a smaller cabin, you usually get a smaller bathroom, and that usually means less space to put out your toiletries, but one simple way to combat that is to have a hanging toiletry bag. These do exactly what they say on the tin, as they are a toiletry bag that opens up and usually comes with a hook, so you can hang them on the inside of your bathroom door and then have easy access to all of your toiletries without taking up that precious space. The last thing you really want to be thinking about on the cruise is the next day, as that is a surefire way to make your cruise seem like it's flying by, when you really want to be relaxing and for it to seem like you still have lots of time left. One thing that I always do, well aside from when it's a sea day the next day, is to put out what I will wear on the next day, the night before. It's always easier to do it the night before, especially if you do it when you are getting changed for the evening anyway, and then in the morning you save time when you are half asleep to give you more time to enjoy a leisurely breakfast before heading ashore or to the theatre for your excursion. It also makes it easier to get ready, especially when you need to put on things like sun cream, as you don't need to keep going in and out of storage areas, as everything is already waiting and ready for you to get dressed. Something that is always annoying when you arrive in your stateroom is when the sides are covered in things that you will never use. Things like expensive bottles of water that you'll be charged an arm and a leg to drink, ice buckets and even tea trays with a kettle, just things me and my wife will never use, but they take up loads of space, and usually right next to the plug sockets. That space could be put to much better use by me and my wife, so when we first meet our steward, we simply ask him to remove things such as those mentioned. If you have a mini fridge that is stocked with pay extra things, you can also ask for it to be cleared, so you can put in any drinks and snacks you get from around the ship or on land into it, depending on the rules of the line of course. Many people will use packing cubes to maximise the space that they have in their suitcase, but when they take everything out of them, they put their stuff into drawers, cupboards and wardrobes. What I recommend doing is reusing your packing cubes in your room, as not only a way of saving space, but also as a way of keeping organised. A packing cube with something such as socks that won't crease can simply be taken out of your suitcase and put into a drawer, and then your socks will take up a lot less space. Me and my wife also keep out the packing cubes that have things like t-shirts in them, as whilst we will hang them in the wardrobe or put them onto a shelf, when we have worn them, we simply roll them up and put them back into the packing cube, which we then keep in a drawer or at the foot of a wardrobe. That not only gives you more space in drawers and storage areas, but it keeps your dirty worn clothes from your clean, unworn clothes. One of the reasons many people go on holiday is to get away from all the stresses of modern day life, but after the first day or two, most will be straight back on their phones and keeping up with things at home via social media. Then you have cameras, night lights, alarm clocks, tablets, laptops, adventure cameras, and plenty of other electronic gadgets that all need charging and that all take up space. What I tend to do is use a drawer close to a desktop area, where me and my wife can keep all of the gadgets until we need them, and then you can use the desktop space above it to charge them. Another issue that tends to pop up is that plugs and USB ports tend to be spread around the cabin, or worse, you only have a couple of each in one place. So make sure you can charge a few things at once in the same space. To do that, I take a USB-C plug with dual port, but whilst the majority of cruise lines allow these, double check with yours first. This is arguably the biggest space saver you can have in a room, and something that many people don't realise, especially those who are new to cruising. On every cruise ship we have sailed on, there has been plenty of space underneath the bed to fit our suitcases, so as soon as we have unpacked them, we put them under the bed and forget about them until the final day or so, when we need to repack. When staying in a small cabin, where all space is at a premium, having one part of the room given over to keeping your suitcase is just a waste. So our top tip is to unpack everything. Yes, this one is a pain, and if you leave your packing before your holiday to the last minute like me, it's even more annoying as you've only just packed everything you are now unpacking, but it does help and it's well worth doing. With little space to grab your things every day, you really want to make sure that everything you will need for your cruise is out on the first day, and then you can store your luggage out of the way and forget about it, well until the end of your cruise anyway. With all of the stuff in its own place, you also don't need to keep moving around those you are sharing your accommodation with. You can get ready much quicker, giving you more time to enjoy your getaway, and with everything away in cupboards or drawers, you have more space to sit and relax in. So all that remains to be said is thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed my top 10 tips for staying organised in a small cruise cabin, and see you next time.